I am really excited for today's video because we're going to be talking about enchanting and also, well, what's it called when you put stuff on an anvil? I'm just going to call it anviling. Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Fozzen and today, like I mentioned, we're going to be talking about putting enchantments on your gear and the best way to do it. This is honestly, well, I really love the idea of it because recently in the Fozzen server, I've been doing a lot of dying. I have been doing a lot of dying, and I hope I'm not doing any more anytime soon. And I really just wanted to know what are the best ways to do enchanting and stuff, and I've been playing Minecraft for a few years, and I know quite a bit about using the enchantment table, but I've never really used the anvil, and I found out some pretty cool things when I was looking into this, so let's get right into it. I'm a magical man today. I am a magical man. So for what is enchanting? Well, enchanting is actually taking your gear in Minecraft and either putting enchantments on it through combining enchanted gear, or enchanting it in an enchanting table, or adding enchanted books to it. And for an example, we actually have a netherite hoe with us right now. And the reason I'm using netherite is actually because it has a higher enchantability rate. So basically that means you have a higher chance of getting good level enchantments and a lower chance of getting lower level enchantments. Not so much Fortune 3, Fortune 2, Fortune 1, but the percentages kind of flip. Actually, netherite is a little bit better than gold, and that is really cool. But what do enchantments do for you as a player? Like, what do they do in game? Well, actually, I've got a little diagram over here that kind of shows that. I actually have to go into survival so that I don't just destroy these. And we've got some armor that we can look at, and then we have some tools that we can look at too. So the first thing is the helmet. So it has protection 4, which reduces the amount of damage you take. It has unbreaking 3, which can be applied to all the tools, not even the ones that are just here. You can do flint and steel, and also shears too. And that just makes it so that it takes less damage. Actually, in the Fozzen server, I was using a diamond axe, and it has about 1,500 durability, but with unbreaking 3, I chopped 5,000 logs. 5,000 logs! Anyway, yeah, so it does help a lot. Mending, actually, what it does is when you receive an experience point, so not an orb can have up to 2,000 experience points in it. So when you get an orb, it will actually start to repair your armor. And back in the day, you had to combine tools over and over and over until they got too expensive, and then you just have to let that tool break. So mending is one of the best additions to the game, in my opinion. After that is Respiration 3, and what that does is it actually lets you go under the water and blub about for longer. You get more air bubbles. Well, you don't have more, but they go away more slowly. And Aqua Affinity just allows you to break blocks at a normal speed when you're under the water, as long as you're touching the ground. If you're swimming, it's still a little bit slower. Then, for the chest plate and the pants, it is actually just protection 4, unbreaking 3, and mending. And I know you can put thorns. I'll actually talk about thorns. So what that is when you get hit, there's a chance that your armor will deal damage back to that thing that hit you, whether it's a mob or a player. And the reason I don't like it, well, is I don't do PvP, and it doesn't really damage your armor. Like, it damages your armor quite a bit, actually. And it doesn't do that much damage to the mobs. I just don't care for it. Then, for the boots, there is actually the same thing, protection 4, unbreaking, and mending. But then there's feather falling 4, and what that does is I never used to use it. I would die a lot from falling. If you go way up in the... I thought I was in creative. If you go way up in the air and you land, you take a lot less damage. There's also Depth Strider, and a new 1.16 enchantment, Soul Speed. So what Depth Strider does is it allows you to swim faster and to walk in water faster, which is really just an essential enchantment all in all. And Soul Speed allows you to go really fast on Soul Speed. Soul Sand and Soul Soil. Now, moving on to the tools, there's actually the bow that is next. And this one, well, I always thought it was the most enchantments on a thing, but actually no, it's the sword. But anyway, there is power 5. That just makes it so it deals a lot more damage. It doesn't go further, but when it hits, it deals a lot more damage. Unbreaking 3 again, and infinity is something I put on this bow. So infinity, like a lot of you guys will know, is when you have one arrow and you can just shoot it over and over and over. So you can't pick up those arrows, they're kind of like invisible ghost arrows, but I really like that, because then you only have to carry one arrow on you at a time. You can't actually put mending on an infinity bow. That's something called mutually exclusive in Enchanting, and when something's mutually exclusive, they can't be added together. Then there's also punch 2, which is like knockback. If I hit something, it goes back a little bit, but if I have punch 2, it'll go back a lot further. And then also there's flame, and that just light things on fire, which is really, really awesome, because who doesn't want to light things on fire? After the bow, we actually can move into the sword, because this one is really... it takes a long time to enchant a sword, and I have done it a few times on the server. So sharpness 5, again, is like power, it deals more damage. We have the unbreaking 3, the mending, the standard stuff, and looting 3 is actually awesome. It is so awesome. If you're trying to collect mob drops, it is great. It has a higher chance of dropping things. You can get more ender pearls, which is normally what I used to use it for, and you can just get more mob drops overall. There's also sweeping edge, and that one is fantastic now that the combat update is out. So what you can do is normally when you hit something, you deal full damage to the one you hit, and a lot less to the ones around it. You know, when you get like that kind of arc kind of deal? But when you have sweeping edge, and especially sweeping edge 3, when you deal that damage in the middle, it deals almost full, or maybe full, damage. I'll have to check that. But it deals equal damage to all of them, so you can attack a lot more at the same time. It makes the enders so much more efficient. After that, we have fire aspect 2. Again, that lights things on fire, and knockback, which throws them backwards. Then we have the tools. I actually didn't grab a trident, just because that's not something I normally use, and these have efficiency 5, unbreaking 3, and mending, and the only difference is silk touch and fortune. So silk touch allows you to get things like glass. This is my silk touch pick. I can break this glass, and I actually get that back. Fortune 3, on the other hand, gives you more blocks from things. Well, not more blocks, more drops, and that would be for something like diamonds, emeralds, and the other one is coal. Oh yeah, quartz, coal, lapis, diamonds, and emeralds. Those are the ones that drop not an ore, but like a drop itself, and you can get a lot more from that. I never used to use Fortune 3, and I had like no diamonds. And although I know you can put sharpness 5 on an axe, I just normally don't, so I didn't include that. The last thing I'm going to mention in this chapter before we move into smart enchanting over there in the cool guys section is actually these signs, because they aren't like you need to know this information, but they are so funny. So in the Fozzencraft server, I had a zombie grinder and a skeleton grinder right at the start. I killed 11,000 zombies and 12,000 skeletons, and that took a long, long time. That was months in the making. And then recently we did an ender, and I've killed 22,000. So definitely, I killed more in a shorter amount of time. You definitely want to do an ender. Zombie pigman farms are really good too. Just don't use spawners. Don't use them. They're good for the early game, but that's it. Over here is actually the amount of experience points it takes to get from level 30. So if I gave myself 2,920 experience points, I would have reached level 30, ka-ching, kapow. And then over here is actually the amount of monsters it would take. So those all drop 5 points of experience, and it would take 458 monsters to get all the way to level 30. And overall, with all of those monsters I've killed, I could have gotten to level 700. But that's not all. I could have gotten to level 30 81 times. 81 times! And that just goes to show that when you're grabbing experience, you don't want to go up too high, because it starts to get harder and harder and harder and harder really, really fast to get those levels. So you want to stick around 30 if you're doing enchanting and stuff. Now for smart enchanting. So I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to take everything out of here, because we're going to be talking about the best way. Well, it might not be the best way, but it is the way that I always enchant things. It is a fantastic method. So what you can see is when you're in here, I don't even need the lapis. When you go on a piece of armor, the helmet shows you, in this case it's protection 4. The chest plate and the pants will actually show you their own. Although in this case it's protection 4, that is a bad example. They show you their own category. They are grouped together. When you do the boots, it is unbreaking 3, that is its own. And then same with the sword, it's its own category. and then all these tools are all grouped in as one. That's why I find it harder to enchant tools, because of this method. So what you can actually do is, let's say I wanted Respiration 3 on this, I want Protection 4 on here, so that's good, I have that, and I wanted Feather Falling on here. On here, I actually want Sharpness 5, so I'm gonna wait for maybe Sweeping Edge or something like that, because that one's harder to get on a tool. And for these ones, I just want Fortune 3 and Silk Touch. So this didn't have Silk Touch, the helmet and the boots didn't have what they wanted, and the sword didn't have Sweeping Edge 3 or Looting 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to enchant this, because that's what I wanted. Okay, perfect. Protection 4, Unbreaking 3, I'll set this aside. Now, you can actually go through, and you'll see that one was Fire Protection 3. This one is... well, that is a terrible example, but yeah. Projectile Protection 4 up here, and Feather Falling 2. If we go back here, these are different, as you can see. That's a bother that it keeps showing that. Anyway, yeah, we can check the pants too. That has updated, and same with the sword. Now, this is something else, and what you can do with that is you can actually go through all your tools, swapping through them, and getting the best enchantments that you want. But if you only have the one item, let's say you only have this netherite hoe, you can enchant books, because I'm checking this out. I want Silk Touch, right? There is no Silk Touch here. So if I put this book in, none of these I want. I'll take this cheap one. This only costs 1 experience level, and you can put this aside, and you can check again, and you can keep checking until you have it, and afterwards, if these aren't good enchantments, you can just remove them and get some of that experience back into you, which is a fantastic method. When you're enchanting on the enchanting table, there's 2 things that you want to try and do. The first is to enchant in the order that is hardest, and that is actually sword, then boots, then helmet, then tools, then chestplate and pants, then book, because the book is used to reset things. So anyway, yeah, with the helmet, what you want to do, for all the tools actually, you want to get what is hardest to get on a book. So, for example, on a sword, that would be Looting 3. For a sword, I always aim Looting 3 or Sweeping Edge 3. It's just so nice to have that, that way you don't need to get it in a book. Then after that, for the boots, I do Feather Falling 4. For the helmet, I do Respiration 3. For the chestplate and pants, I select Protection 4, because there's a really high chance of getting Unbreaking 3 on that. That's why you always do that one second lowest priority. And for the tools, I will do Fortune or Silk Touch. So for pickaxes, I always have 1 Silk Touch pickaxe, like come on, it's amazing. And then also a Fortune 3, because you wouldn't have any diamonds if you didn't use that. For an axe, I'll do Silk Touch, because there's never really a situation in which you want to use Fortune, now that they have the hose as that good tool. And of course, with hose, moving on to that, I do 1 Fortune and 1 Silk Touch, because it is really nice to get saplings, and really nice to have them as awesome shears. And lastly, for the shovel, I always do Silk Touch. I have never had a use for gravel. That's really the only thing I can think of using a shovel for, and yeah, it's just really great to always get full gravel. Did I say I don't like getting gravel? No, I love getting gravel. I don't like getting flint. That was an almost perfect run of the enchantment table. We got everything we wanted, and although, like you guys saw, the chestplate, that guy was a little bit picky. It kept getting Protection 4 with no Unbreaking 3, and what I always do is I do the boots first, because I want Depth Strider 3 or Feather Falling 4, then I do the helmet, and I want Respiration 3, then the sword, and I either want Looting 3 or Sweeping Edge 3, but we got a Sweeping Edge 3 book right here, and we got a Feather Falling book, so we are set with the boots and the sword. Then after that, I will do one of these tools. Always aim for a Silk Touch or a Fortune 3 in the level 30 slot, because if you grab it in the second one, you won't get the fortune, I mean the efficiency and stuff. No! That has a 0.6 chance! Okay, this got efficiency 5, I didn't even notice that. That is a less than a 1% chance. Wow. Okay, well, we did fantastically. And look at this. We only had to refresh, what is this, 14 times? So we lost 14 levels in dud enchantments. This is 9, so we did 27. So we did 27 levels here, 14 here, and then another, this would be 12. So we did decent. And although the chest plate did have to go through this right here 3 times, that's another 9 levels, but still, this little chat is going to be a lot shorter. I just want to mention that that was, efficiency 5, crazy. Anyway, yeah, we're going to move into anvil stuff now. Let's get complicated. Now we're moving into the anvil stuff, and this is where things get a little bit complicated, but it is so cool. Okay, so basically, in this anvil, there is the anvil cost, which is affected by the amount of times your item has gone through the anvil. There is also the enchantment cost, which is the amount of experience you're going to need to pay to get that whole thing done up. Then there's the enchantment type cost, and I'll talk about that. It's more simple than it sounds, but yeah, it does sound very complicated. I was originally going to use a diamond helmet, but then I realized there was a big flaw in the way I was going to explain it, so we're actually going to be using this diamond sword, unbreaking 1, sharpness 1, knockback 1, and these, and you'll see why in a second. Before we begin, I actually want to talk about those things that I mentioned. The enchantment cost, the enchantment type cost, and the anvil cost. Don't worry, it's a lot simpler than it sounds. So all these items have never been through an anvil before. They've been in one before, but they've never gone through an anvil. And you can see that by trying to rename it. It has an enchantment cost of 1, because to rename something, you add the anvil cost and 1. So this has an anvil cost of nothing. And renaming it doesn't add to the anvil cost. These also have that same thing, but they have another thing too, which is the enchantment type cost. And I can show you that by trying to add this sword. So these are 0, right? And if I add a sharpness 1, you can see it costs 1. So sharpness 1 has an enchantment type, which is sharpness, cost of 1. But if we do sharpness 5, it is level 5, so it costs 5. And, for example, if we did looting, even though it's looting 3, it costs 6. So, I'm going to be talking about not the enchantment type cost of sharpness, but of sharpness 1. So yeah, like I said, these don't have an anvil cost. We aren't going to add anvils there yet, it's still 0. And these all have an enchantment type cost of 1. So what you want to do is you want to actually add them in groupings. You want to add them up so that their anvil cost stays as low as possible. And in this example, these are all 1, so it's very simple. You just want to do this, and that now has a cost of 1 and an anvil cost of 1. So if I were to rename this, it would actually cost 2, because it costs 1 and 1 to rename it. So that has an anvil cost of 1. Let's add these together, and now this actually, although it does have an anvil cost of 1, it now has an enchantment cost of 2, because it's sharpness 1 and unbreaking 1. So if I were to add these together, this doesn't matter because we aren't adding it. That would be 2, 3, 4. We're going to add that, and now it costs 4. So now we have that diamond sword. But what if we want to go more complicated than that? Well, let's actually go over to this one. This is a max level helmet. We're going to break that and put it back, and we're going to keep tracking this the whole way through, but it does get a little bit different than just ones. We have a similar thing going on here, but this time there's actually a 6, which is respiration 3, and we have 4, 3, and 2. Now in this situation, what you would want to do, although you want to normally add like kind of the cheapest last, for example, if I did respiration 3 and this, it would only cost 2, even though this costs 6. The reason you don't want to do that is because if you actually do this book, it's going to cost 8. Well, 9 because of that anvil cost. So you don't want to actually do that. The first thing you're going to want to do is do the most expensive onto the helmet, or whatever you're enchanting, because that way you... not that one. Because you only want to... It's lost. Yeah, like I was saying, you want to do the most expensive one first, and that is actually respiration 3, because you will never have to add this to the helmet again. That is the first thing you're going to want to do, and that actually brings the cost of our helmet up to 1 on the anvil cost. And it doesn't have any experience cost because we aren't going to be adding more, we aren't adding this diamond helmet to the books, so even though it would be 6, it stays like that. The next step is actually to do this, because although if I put all these books together, the total cost to put it on the helmet would be 2, 3, 4, 7, 11. So that doesn't matter, that doesn't change, they can be combobulated any way you want, but to save on levels, you want to take the more expensive ones and add them to cheaper ones because that first cost is lower. So although it is going to be added to that helmet, you don't just want to add them all because the cost of this will go up. And it doesn't go up by 1 every time. Actually, it goes from 0 to 2 to 4 to 8 to 16 to 32. So after that, you can't enchant it anymore. So you don't want to just add it all to your helmet. You want to add it to the books like this. But if you do this, this actually cancels out that 4 for the beginning. Because if I did this, that would cost me 4. And then it would cost me 6 to add it to here minus the anvil cost. So we want to do most expensive plus cheap. Well, let's do that again. We're going to do most expensive plus cheap. And that was pretty decent. That only cost us 4. So 2 each. that is pretty decent. This next spot is where things get a little bit hazy because I grabbed another diamond helmet to show you this book costs 7. And this one costs 6. And before, like we did, we had 4 of these little things that we were adding together. And that was really easy. You add this one to this one to this one, then boom, all together. But in this one, you actually have to make a decision which one is best to do. And what I found is actually you just want to add it to the helmet. Because if I did this, this would cost me the 7, right? This one would cost me 6. If I added those together, that would be 13, and then 2 to the anvil cost. So that sounds like math, you know, like 2 to the power of 10, 2 to the anvil cost. So it would add that together, so you'd have to pay one of these books twice. So the first thing you want to do is just add that most expensive one. I forgot which one was most expensive. Yeah, the 7. So you want to add that 7 to the helmet so you don't have to deal with it anymore. Now that is 8. And if you check the anvil cost of this, it is actually, like I mentioned, 3. So the first time you add 1, then you add 2. So it gets expensive very quickly. And now, because this is still 1, we'll add this for a higher anvil cost, but this is what's going to be cheapest, 9. So that was a full helmet in 9 experience levels at the end. Okay, awesome. Now, what if we want to actually take it up another level? If we want to do that, we could either do the bow. I'm just going to do that at the end just so you guys know. But we are going to go to the sword because the sword is crazy. There is a lot of things going on with the sword. There are a lot of things. The reason the sword is so crazy is because it has 2 level 6s. And the first step is actually going to be exactly what we did last time. Add that most expensive one to the sword. Now this has an anvil cost of 1. What that means, we don't have to deal with that sweeping edge ever again. The next step is to add another, the real expensive one, with a super cheap one so it only costs 2. Because we want to keep these anvil costs low. So now we have no more 6s. That is great. Even though we have to put this on the sword, we won't have to deal with that looting 3 as another 6. It was a 2 and then a 6. Now we're going to add this 5 with a 2. That is going to cost us 2. We have an anvil cost of 1 right here. We are done with these experience bottles. Oh, they go there. And now 4 and 3. Perfect. That is really nice and easy. And again, with the sword, we have a super easy decision. This one costs us 9, this one costs us 8, and this one costs us 8. So, we put the most expensive one on first. Oh, we don't add it to a diamond sword, that just brings up the level. Boom. And then also, let's add that cheaper one onto here. Oh, no, I guess they're both the same. And it only costs 9 because the anvil cost is 1. We're keeping things really, really low. Now these are at 3. So, although this costs right here 17, it is going to cost us 20? Yep, 20. Perfect. And that is just straight excellent. Last thing is the bows, and I'm just going to touch briefly on this because this is just to show you the best path. Now, Infinity Bow will cost you more simply because the Infinity costs 4 and the Mending costs 2. So again, we're going to want to put that most expensive one on there first, Power 5. Then we're going to want to mix this here. That has the same enchantment cost, well, anvil cost. Let's add this, make that a cost of 2. Add the most expensive, and then this one right here. And that ended up with a total cost of 9 at the end, which isn't that bad at all. Let's do this one right here. It gets a little bit more expensive on this one, adding all of these together. You want to do that most expensive one first, and then this. So it ended up costing 11, just because that infinity costs a little bit more than this one right here. And that is it. That is it for the video. You guys know how to use an anvil. There is the enchantment cost, which is what it is at the end. There's the anvil cost, which goes up based on the amount of times you've enchanted, and you want to keep that real low. And then there's also the enchantment type cost, which is dependent on your type of book. So, I didn't know you could do this before, that you could make a max level sword and only end up paying 20 at the end, which is awesome. I really love that. Especially with those enchanting tips too. Just choosing a bunch of things all at once makes your life a lot easier, because that way you don't have to cycle through as many books. And although doing those books in that trick isn't that bad at all if you have an XP farm nearby, it is easy. It is great. You guys can use this in your worlds. I'm so thankful that you guys watched it. I had a blast filming it. I learned a lot of things. I learned a lot of things today, and we got pretty lucky with that efficiency 5. So yeah. If you did enjoy, hit that like button. I want to see if this video helped you. Any other comments, add them down below in the comment section. Tell me what you guys thought, what I could improve, anything you want. And also, if you want to catch more tutorials like these, survival Minecraft videos like Fozzen Craft, any of that kind of jazz, subscribe to the channel. You can do it right now. And until I see you in the next video I make, it is bye for now from me, guys. Catch you later.